This is Business Now, reaching you live from iBrandTV news studios in Lagos, Nigeria. Coming up, the House of Representatives gives Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited 2 weeks to defend its 3 trillion naira indebtedness. The president of the African Development Bank warns many African countries may face food riots and political crisis. Experts predict the world may battle a global shortage of diesel due to the ongoing sanctions on Russia. Oil prices rise as a reported drop in U.S. crude inventories increased concerns about tight global supplies. Hello again, and glad to have you join us. I'm Michael Nath. The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on Recovery of Outstanding Debts owed by oil and gas companies has given the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, now Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, 2 weeks to defend its indebtedness to the federal government to the tune of 3 trillion naira. The committee, which approved the NNPC's request for an extension of time at its investigative hearing in Abuja on Tuesday, also invited the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning over the debts. The committee had on March 15, 2022, begun the investigation based on the report of the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, while the NNPC and its subsidiaries are said to owe the federal government a total of sum of 3 trillion naira in crude oil sales and taxes. 77 oil companies operating in Nigeria owe 2.6 trillion naira. The chairman of the committee decried that a huge sum of money belonging to the government had been stacked in individual accounts, causing paucity of funds to finance the budget. Onye Chocha stated that the committee would not tolerate ministries, departments and agencies undermining efforts to recover public funds meant for the development of the nation. Now, the world may face a global shortage of diesel due to the ongoing sanctions on Russia, which is expected to affect poorer nations from Nigeria to Sri Lanka that import its diesel. This was disclosed by the heads of 3 of the largest commodity traders at the Financial Times Global Summit in Lucerne, Switzerland. They warned that 3 million barrels a day would be taken off the markets due to the sanctions on Russia. Similarly, truck owners operating in the Nigerian maritime industry have lamented a government's neglect and disregard for haulage operators, threatening that an increase in the cost of cargo movement is imminent. The truck owners lamented that the maritime sector has not enjoyed the same treatment given the aviation sector. They said the federal government is constantly in dialogue with the aviation industry over the increase in aviation fuel, while truck owners who are battling the soaring cost of diesel have been neglected. The truck owners said many of their members can no longer make ends meet, describing the situation as critical. They said they may be forced to increase haulage rates soon. The president of the Council of Maritime Truck-Owned Unions and Associations, Adeyinka Aroyenwu, noted that the cost of running haulage business has tripled and could compound the issues facing the maritime sector. Meanwhile, the lingering foreign exchange scarcity in the country has continued to worsen, even as the exchange rate on the parallel market is inching towards 590 naira per dollar. The development may lead to massive job loss in the manufacturing industry, among other sectors. That's according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. The development comes over 8 months after the Central Bank of Nigeria stopped the sale of Forex to Bureau de Change operators and promised to boost liquidity in commercial banks. And right now, I'm joined by Gospel Obele. Gospel Obele is the Chief Economist, CEO, Streetnomics Limited. Hello, Obele. Thanks for joining us on Business Now.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Beautiful. Now, what factors? We've heard from reports now that the exchange rate at the parallel market is 590 naira per dollar. What factors are responsible for this continuous falling of the naira?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael, for the question. Yes, clearly there's been a major challenge with the Nigerian economy structurally. The big question around why the naira keeps falling is because in relative to global dynamics and in relative to how competitive our country is positioned, all right, we've not been able to unlock the structural enablers, all right, that will help us stay competitive and earn as much as we can from export proceeds. All of these economics, export economics, and the idea of being competitive is what places your currency at a competitive position. You know, the currency is a function of how much of productivity we see in an economy. So because of that lack of productivity and lack of structural enablers, right, we've sort of positioned the economy and the currency to become vulnerable, right, to global geopolitics, global economics, and all of the import-heavy driven conversations we have at the moment in the economy. And that pressures heavily from a demand-supply dynamics on the naira. And we begin to see that as demand increases and the worsening state of that exchange increases, it puts Nigerians and businesses and economic agents in a severe position.
Now, about 8 months ago, the CBN stopped the sale of Forex to Bureau de Change operators, and at the same time promising to boost the liquidity in commercial banks. Has the CBN made good this promise?
Yeah, I don't think that has been the case. A lot of the policies the central bank made last year were as a result of very largely uninformed, in as much all the policies that has been initiated since 2021 to date by the central bank has been designed a lot of times to patch, structural issues in the economy. And that leaves the central bank and commercial banks, very much vulnerable to a lot of risk as well. But a lot of times we've seen that the central bank has not been able to live up to its promise, because even the central bank is caught up trying to do a lot, trying to manage for fiscal policy excesses, as well as trying to manage engage proper management of a failing currency. That, as well as increasing demand of FX and all of those dynamics, has impacted on the central bank not being able to manage the commercial banks and increase inflow into commercial banks when you talk about foreign currencies, as it were. And do not forget also, in recent policies by the central bank, it attempted to stop selling or making available foreign exchange to commercial banks. That's an early signal to show that the central bank might not be able to meet up its demands, and commercial banks may need to look for a plan B.
All right. Now, from the look of things, is there any likelihood that we are going to have a reverse of this downward trajectory of the naira?
To be very honest, I don't think that would be the case in the short term, because the major conversations around why the naira is failing are structural conversations, not policy conversations. If there are policy conversations, the central bank would have found a way, to deal around these challenges a long time ago. But apparently, you can't use policy as a solution to structural issues. All right. So, how long are we going to be in this conversation is dependent on how fast, all right, the government of the day, in partnership with the central bank, is willing to fix structural issues that enable for productivity and export competitiveness.
All right.
Not all is position makes and of taking better balance of trade and balance of payments and the likes.
Okay, Obele is still very much around, but in the meantime, let's bring you some more news. The Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi, says the reason for asking the president to come inspect the $1.5 billion Lekki Deep Sea Port project was to put pressure on the developers to complete it quickly. Amechi said this on Tuesday when President Muhammadu Buhari visited the seaport for a quick inspection. as he left immediately for the commissioning of the Murtala Muhammed Airport terminal in Lagos. He said the president's inspection is to also publicize the project for people to know that this government is building the first deep sea port in Nigeria, noting that other ports in Nigeria are all river ports. He said the effect of the constant inspection of the port has hastened its completion, and the seaport would have been ready before June. President Muhammadu Buhari has also predicted an agriculture and economic boom for the country following the coming on stream of the $2.5 billion Dangote fertilizer plant in Ibejuleki, Lagos. The president spoke during the inauguration of the plant with an installed capacity of producing 3 million metric tons of urea yearly. Specifically, President Buhari noted that the plant is already exporting fertilizer to the United States of America, India, and Brazil, among other countries, and is expected to trigger huge job creation opportunities, wealth, and secure the country's agricultural future. Earlier on iBrandTV Business Breakfast, Yusuf Ogumbi, head product structuring and origination at Afex Nigeria, highlighted the potential in the Nigerian fertilizer market.
So the fertilizer plant will be producing urea, which is a critical element in the entire fertilizer mix that we need in the country. So if you look at the situation we also have, Nigeria has about 3 of these major producers as of today. So we have Dangote, which is joining the fray now as the largest one. We have Notoria, we have Indorama as well as producing this commodity, this urea fertilizer. And in order to produce this urea fertilizer, you need natural gas, which Nigeria has a lot of it in terms of natural resource in the country. So we have the raw materials, we have the consumption. Nigeria consumes, even though we have one of the lowest forms of consumption per hectare in terms of fertilizer globally, it still shows you that the market is still a very huge one, and there's a lot of potential in this market. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you realize that the fertilizer market globally is in a very, very tight situation. And as much fertilizer as you can produce internally, in-house, in country, where you have the natural gas to produce this type of fertilizer, it's absolutely welcomed. And I really laudable.
Yeah, I still have here with me Gospel Obele, the Chief Economist, CEO, Streetnomics Limited. Now, a $2.5 billion fertilizer plant with targeted capacity of 3 million metric tons a year, quite huge. Now, what does this mean to the agriculture sector of the country and to the economy in general?
Right, yes. So quite honestly, it's a very good initiative. It's something that's worth celebrating, regardless of how ambiguous some of the numbers may look like. It's significantly worth celebrating. And the idea of producing fertilizer at home and producing it en-masse has been a major aspiration for the Nigerian, for past government and the current administration as well. So I think it's a good one. It's a good way to go. My conversation or worry would be positioning this whole value chain, like I mentioned earlier on, for export dives, and to ensuring that we are positioning the Nigerian fertilizer, homemade produced fertilizer, as key non-oil exports products, to the international market. But it's a very good initiative. It also holds the potential to create new jobs and all the likes. But the question of growing the economy and economic boom, you cannot really tie that down to one part of the value chain in a sector. A whole lot of enablers have to come into place to ensure that these kind of initiatives can significantly contribute to GDP growth and expansion.
Now, this plant has been said to be one of, in short, the biggest of its kind in the continent of Africa. And it is expected, in fact, they said, the exportation is already ongoing to US, India, Brazil, and other countries. Now, what's the guarantee that focus won't be solely on exportation rather than taking care of the needs of the local farmers, bearing in mind that Nigeria has one of the lowest fertilizer applications in Africa.
Yes, I agree with you. It's a serious call for worry. The questions will be if this initiative will also lead to, significant overturn or in terms of value additions to the Nigerian economy. How do we leverage, our indigenous strength to grow value chain distribution network and ensure that every farmer in Nigeria, all right, has access to more than enough fertilizer to grow their plantation and all of that. So it's a lot around dealing with the economics, and the many other enablers, like I mentioned earlier on, that enablers have to come to the fore.
All right, thank you very much. I've been talking with Gospel Obele, Chief Economist and CEO, Streetnomics Limited. Now to the rest of the news. The federal government received a total of 6.4 million applications for its N-Power Batch C Youth Empowerment Scheme. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk, announced on Tuesday. N-Power is a scheme set up by the federal government in June 2016 to address the issues of youth unemployment and help increase social development. Speaking in Abuja at the Humanitarian Ministry Open House event inauguration of Eternally Displaced Persons Policy, she stated that 510,000 applicants had been enrolled, while 490,000 would come on board. The Nigerian gas marketing company has signed a $50 million contract to deliver 125 to 250 MMSCF of gas to the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, NDPHC. Now, the deal would result in an additional 800 megawatts to the national grid. The special advisor to President Buhari on infrastructure, Ahmed Zakari, made this known on his Twitter handle. He noted that the Calabar Odunkpani NIPP power plant came back on the grid on Tuesday, ramping up to 400 megawatts. He added that the Niger Delta Power Holding has signed a $50 million gas security contract with NGMC for 125 to 250 to secure up to 800 megawatts of additional power. He explained that while the recent spate of system collapse is regrettable, it was a direct consequence of a snap on a 330 kV transmission line. Now, still to come, world's richest billionaire, Elon Musk, opens Tesla's first plant in Europe. Details and more business news after this break. Stay with us.
Most people don't understand the magic of a perfect skin, the allure of a well-pampered skin. We bounce from skincare products to skincare products, from spa to spa. Looking for that ideal solution. I found the solution. And it's Blemiville Skincare and Spa. My name is Neil, and I'm proud to be a part of the Blemiville family.
You're watching Business Now on iBrandTV Lagos. Now to Africa's scene. The president of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, has warned that many African countries may face food riots and political crisis due to the war in Ukraine. Additional warned that the war would have global ramifications, stressing the need for an end to the war. He said in a quote that this war has to come to an end. It's not just a war in Ukraine. It's a war that has global ramifications. End of quote. Addition also said the war in Ukraine poses a severe challenge to Africa, which is deeply reliant on cereal imports from Ukraine and Russia. According to Additional, the rising food and energy prices could have serious political repercussions for many African countries. Now, members of parliament have allocated themselves 4.9 billion shillings as they rush to implement constituency projects ahead of the August 9 general elections. The Budget and Appropriations Committee has allocated the money for the National Constituencies Development Fund under the Treasury budget. The Treasury had last month told the Finance and National Planning Committee that 4.9 billion shillings is the NGCDF arrears for the financial years 2011-12, 2013-14, 2014 and 15, and will be factored in supplementary estimates number 1 of 2021-2022. Julius Muir, the Treasury PS, told the committee that disbursement of the 4.98 billion shillings will be done after completing the payment of the NGCDF allocation for the current financial year in mid-April. Foreign scene now, billionaire CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, has opened a 5 billion euros Tesla factory in Europe. The new Giga Berlin factory, or Giga Factory Berlin Brandenburg factory, is located in Grundnord, a coal town in Brandenburg, Germany. The new electric vehicle plant, upon its official opening, delivered its first 30 vehicles to clients who ordered them and were invited to the event. Musk announced this in his tweet, excited to hand over the first production cars made by Giga Berlin Brandenburg tomorrow. The German factory is Tesla's third major plant. There are factories in Fremont and California, both in the United States, and Shanghai in China. Another plant outside Austin, Texas, in the United States, is expected to open soon. Now, the world's second richest man, Jeff Bezos, recently enjoyed impressive gains in his net worth amid strong buy-side pressure on Amazon stock on Tuesday. According to Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Jeff Bezos has a net worth of $190 billion, up to $3.42 billion from last year's figures. Today, 98.6 million troy ounces of gold, or 1.63 billion barrels of crude oil, would be worth the 58-year-old Seattle-based billionaire's wealth valuation. Thailand has issued rules to ban digital assets from being used to pay for goods and services from April the 1st, the market regulator said on Wednesday. The move was in line with earlier discussions between the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Bank of Thailand on need to regulate such activity by digital asset business operators, as it could impact the country's financial stability and overall economy. SEC said in a statement the digital asset business operators that provide such services must comply with the new rules within 30 days from the effective date, it said. Oil prices rose on Wednesday as a reported drop in U.S. crude inventories increased concerns about tight global supplies amid the hit to Russia exports from economic sanctions. Brent crude futures climbed $1.77 or 1.53% to $117.25 a barrel at 0443 GMT after falling 14 cents in the previous session. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose $1.51 or 1.38% to $110.78 a barrel after losing 36 cents on Tuesday. The market remains on edge over the prospect of further sanctions on Russia, the world's second largest crude exporter. We'll now go on a commercial break. And when we return, we'll have more news updates from Perpetua. Stay with us.